My name is Deepesh Patel, Editor-in-Chief at Trade, Treasury, Payments. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by the President of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Madam President, welcome to Trade, Treasury, Payments.
Thank you very much for welcoming me here.
Thank you, and it's just been a couple of weeks since the EBRD annual meeting held here in London. I'd like to start with talking to you about the ratification of Article 1. Now, the EBRD has the new mandate to operate in Sub-Saharan Africa. What strategic role do you see for trade and trade finance as the bank expands into this region? And how might that approach differ from your work across existing EBRD economies?
So, first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about what we do in trade and trade finance in EBRD. And indeed, for us, this ratification of Article 1 and the fact that we are going to start investing in some Sub-Saharan African countries. And so we start with 3. It will be Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, and Nigeria. And we expect Senegal and Kenya and Ghana also to come. And trade, overall trade, is a big challenge for Sub-Saharan Africa. I think there is this big objective reflected in the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is to increase trade across Africa from 15% to 25% in 2040. Regional trade will be a key driver, is expected to be a key driver for growth in Africa in the years to come. But of course, everything we've been doing in other regions to support SMEs, export capacities, facilitate banking access to trade finance, and so forth will be very relevant in Sub-Saharan Africa. So we really expect trade finance to be one first component of what we are going to do in Sub-Saharan Africa. And I would not be surprised if one of the first projects we would have would be in trade finance, because we also have a lot of partnership with banks which are working in other regions. We've built a partnership in other regions, for example, Morocco, and a lot of Moroccan banks are very active in Sub-Saharan Africa. So probably this will be one of the first projects we will do in the region. And we hope it will really help be one component of driving development of trade.
Thank you. And we really look forward to seeing the development as EBRD expands into the Sub-Saharan African region. Now let's talk about the Trade Facilitation Programme. It's often been described as a day one response tool in a moment of crisis. And I guess as global trade continues to come under scrutiny and pressure from conflict, sanctions, and supply chain shocks, do you see the TFP evolving into a broader instrument for long-term resilience and reconstruction?
So indeed, I think, as you mentioned, very often trade finance is the thing you can do in the most acute crisis. And sometimes it's difficult to finance long-term investment, infrastructure project, private sector, pure private sector, FDI project may be difficult, but it's always possible, or almost always possible, to do some trade finance. And we see, for example, the situation in West Bank. We have stepped up our level of trade finance with the local banks in order to support SMEs exporting, importing, and so forth. In Ukraine, since the beginning of the war, we have implemented 1.6 billion of trade finance. So it's it's a tool which is very useful and very relevant in crisis situation. It's also because of its short term, and it addresses a need which is there, which is really helping a country to face acute challenges. But developing trade finance, as you flagged, is also a way to strengthen the resilience of the country and develop its capacity.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's interesting because trade finance is often counter-cyclical to economic growth. So we've talked about strengthening supply chains, but let's talk about, I guess, building new global value chains. And we have seen global trade continue to reroute and also fragment. But what role do you see in EBRD playing is playing in terms of shaping new trade corridors, so particularly with regards to connecting Europe to Africa, Central Asia and the southern Mediterranean?
So we see this as a top priority. I think that indeed with the shock on the global trade, development of regional trade, development of new corridor will be very important. We've been focusing a lot, for example, on the corridor between Central Asia and Europe, which is needed. I mean, you need to develop new infrastructure, and we've done a study in order to assess what was needed to develop this corridor, which is very much related, I mean, to the war on Ukraine and the impact on the war on Ukraine and the need to develop new avenues for trade. And so we are contributing as a bank. We invest in infrastructure projects that to facilitate this kind of connectivity. So be it in railway, in port infrastructure, in road infrastructure, but also in custom digitalization, custom simplification, and so forth. So we use both our financial instrument, but also our policy work in order to develop the connectivity between Central Asia and Europe, but also, of course, Southern Mediterranean with south of Europe, and Sub-Saharan Africa will be also very important to connect. I mean, and they have quite a lot of ports and activity between the ports and European ports. So I think that's a priority for us, because we see for emerging markets to be able to grow and so forth, developing this regional trade will be very important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Madam President, you were the first woman to lead a multilateral development bank. What advice would you give to females entering the field of financial services, banking, trade and development today?
I mean, so trust yourself. I think that you can have a very interesting, enriching career in this area. Women in finance can do a lot. I think that and can work in big organizations and find their way up. So it's very much a question of confidence, trust, and ensuring that you like what you do and you enjoy working on the issues you have to deal with.
Thank you very much. Trust yourself and enjoy what you do. Madam President, it's been such a pleasure having you on Trade Treasury Payments, and see you in Riga, Latvia next year.
Thank you very much. Thank you. See you.